today, lesson 30, solve, and I'm just going to abbreviate quadratic. Yeah, we're going to be rushing equations using quadratic formula. How do you know you have a quadratic equation? What does it have? No, you're not listening to my question. How do you know, looking at an equation, it's quadratic, and you know it's going to have two answers? You got to know when you look at one. You know.
When it like equals 0, kind of like.
No, because I can write 4x plus 5 equals 0, and that's not quadratic. That's a linear equation. Add, subtract 5, divide by 4. What makes it quadratic? What does it have to have in it? A squared. Thank you. It has to have a squared, has two answers. A cubic's going to have a cube, and it's going to have three answers. So you got to recognize that. Standard form is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Now, I don't remember, and a can't be 0, because if a is 0, you don't have squared. I don't remember if all of them in your classwork, I'm pretty sure, it was originally 12, I cut it down, and I think they're all in this format. You don't have to move anything, I don't think. So, what the quadratic formula, and there's a beautiful derivation of it, the way that you get to that, there's a way to solve quadratic equations called completing the square. That method is amazing that they ever came up with it. We will use that later in the year for something else. So you are going to be exposed to it. But again, time crunch, we're just trying to get things covered that we can before April. Keep in mind that, I guess you're all sophomores, you need to think about whether you're going to take the ACT in, you're not as pushed as juniors are in February. But anyway, the quadratic formula says if you have a quadratic that looks like this, a's in front of x squared, b's in front of x, and c is your constant, and everything's on one side equal to 0, then your two x's, your two answers are, you put b with a negative in front of it. I want to talk about that in just a minute. Now remember, they have 2, and every time we've come up with 2 when we do square root. So it's going to be plus or minus, that's where you get your two answers, a big square root, and I'm going to give you this formula on your calculator Friday. And then under that, you're going to put b squared minus 4ac, and then you're going to have a big fraction bar. You're going to have a big fraction bar, and under that, you're going to say 2a. Now, I've always called this negative b. I've always said negative b. That can be a little bit deceiving. So now teachers are calling it more opposite b. So I like that one better. It'll make sense to you when we start. This part is what you're going to do arithmetic today, and we probably won't have time to do a lot of it, but I want to make sure that you know what you're supposed to be typing on your classwork is just the part under the radical. Remember, it's called the radicand. It has a weird name. It's called the discriminant. I know, it sounds discriminating, doesn't it? I don't know where that came from. I need to Google that. That one, yeah, I've always wondered that one. Never look it up, but where did that name come from? And you know the best way to do it is just jump into it. Number 1, bless you. Let's do 2x squared plus 3x minus 5 equals 0. Is that quadratic? Is that squared? Yes. Now, just looking at it, you can't tell whether it's going to factor or not. Now, if it does factor, and let's see if I still have one of those pieces of paper up here. Let's see if I can put my hands on one real quick. If it does factor, the answers are going to be real and rational. They would be in here. If it won't factor, they're going to be either irrational or imaginary. And remember what affects that. If we can at least get one of each in, I think we'll be doing pretty good. So the first thing I want you to do in your notes, it's up to you on your classwork, is tell me what A, B, and C are. A is 2, B is this 3, and C, oh, am I off? There you go, thank you. And C is negative 5. Now, you got to learn the formula. You just got to learn it, not memorize it, learn it for a day and go on. This will be part of your math career for the rest of your days, for whatever your math is going to be. If you need to have a lot of math in college, Quadratic formula is going to be part of it. So let's just plug in. We're solving for x, so we're going to say x equals. We're looking for our two answers, whether they're real or whether they're complex, rational, irrational. We're just going to start plugging in. Now, I like opposite b, because if b is -3, let me try that again. If b is 3, then you're going to do the opposite of it, or the negative of it. So you're going to have a -3 right here. See, this one will always be the opposite of whatever your b is. Now, plus or minus is here, because that's where, remember, when you do square root, that's when you do your plus or minus, whether it's right here, like this, or whether it's like these. You know, when we did the square root of 16, and you have your plus or minus right there. So your plus or minus fits right there. We put our big square root. Now, in your classwork, on these 8, and maybe on quiz, I got to think about that, you've got to do this step for me. So we're going to literally write 3 squared minus 4, and I use parentheses, times 2 times -5. See, I'm just plugging into my formula. 4 times A times C. Put you a big fraction bar, because they've already done common denominator for you, and it's 2 times 2. Now, beside that, you're going to write -3 plus or minus. Go ahead and put the radical. You don't have to put a very big one. And go ahead and put the 4 underneath. But I want you to, we're going to do it at least one time. I want you to get your calculator, and I want you to type this, that discriminant. The square root is not part of it. It's just the numbers underneath. So you're going to type let me see if I can go this way. You're going to type 3. You can raise it or you can use your squared. Minus, now remember, minus and negative, you have to be careful on. Minus 4 times 2 times -3, and then I'll let you tell me what you got.
But isn't it -5?
Oh, I did something wrong. It is -5. Thank you. So let me.
I got 3. I don't know why.
Because you typed -3, which is what I said, and it was supposed to be -5. So I'm going to change it. And you tell me what you got. What'd you get? 49. Now, if you got 7, you type the square root. I don't want the square root. I want just the discriminant. Now, do we know the square root of 49?
Yes.
If that's a perfect square, I already know my answers are going to be rational answers. And that also tells me that it would have factored. Now, you may not have that skill at this point to recognize this, but now we're just going to clean it up. We're going to find our two answers. So we're going to put -3 plus or minus 7. I do that all the time. I've moved my camera around and it's not, I forget. Now, this is at that point, like over here, when we did this, that you need to separate it into 2. So it's going to be -3 plus 7 over 4, or, am I on screen? Yes, -3 minus 7 over 4. Now, those are pretty easy to do in your head, but here's what I'm talking about, Caroline. If you want to do them on your calculator, say they are a little bit harder arithmetic, then I'm going to do them with that fraction key. Now, if your calculator is updated, it's alpha x. Remember this key? I think all y'all are in good shape. I think that's it. Okay. -3 on top plus 7 over 4 gives me 1. And now you can retype that, or you can copy and paste. And all I have to do is go back up and change that. I don't know which is quicker. Change that to a minus, and I get -5/2. I love it because it leaves them as fractions. I'm trying to teach my geometry kiddos right now to do them as improper fractions, and they want to do mixed numbers. I think that comes from middle school. So there's our two real rational answers. Now, but most people don't like the quadratic formula when they first start doing it, but it gets better, and you'll love it when we put it on the calculator. M squared minus 5m plus 3. Now I'm going to do something a little different in this one because I think it will make your notation better. A is 1. That's what's in front of m squared. B is negative 5. And C is positive 3.
You have to do that step on the workbench. The A equals B equals C equals.
Do you have to write that? No. That's up to you. I just put it for notes because if I don't, you'll forget where they came from. Now, this time we're solving for m, so we need to put m equals. Now, opposite of b, that's why I like that better, because when you say negative b, negative 5 is positive 5. Opposite of negative 5 is positive 5, and I'm going to put positive for emphasis. Plus or minus. Now, let me show you something. This is a big no-no. If you write negative 5 squared, and I don't like to write that, because here's what happened. What is negative 5 times negative 5? But if you put negative 5 squared without parentheses, look, it gives you negative 25. So if you're going to write it this way, you have to put it parentheses. But I'm going to tell you so that you don't have to worry about it, I actually just go ahead and square it. So like here, I would have put a 9. And now I'm just going to go ahead and put 25. That will always be positive because a positive squared is positive and a negative squared is positive. And then we're going to get over, let's see, we haven't finished it. Minus 4 times 1 times 3, and then the whole fraction is over 2 times 1. Now, you have to show this step. Sometimes I say that and then I'm a little lenient, but on this lesson, I shortened it to 8. You have to show this. So now, positive 5 plus or minus square root, and 25 minus 4 times 1 times 3 is 25 minus 12 is 13. I'm just going to go do that for time's sake. Now, that is 2 irrational answers. Square root of 13, we can't break down. But I will tell you that probably on the ACT, they're going to do that. Remember what this means. That is 5 plus square root of 13 over 2, and 5 minus square root of 13 over 2. There's your 2 irrational numbers, answers. But Ms. Newberry really preaches, and it sure does make reducing it easier. Remember what we did back when we did division? Separate it into the rational fraction, which is 5 over 2, plus or minus the square root of 13 over 2. Both are correct. This is the better one because it will help you reduce it.